There are different types of activities. We already learned about tasks and task markers in previous lessons. Besides regular tasks, BPMN also features so-called sub-processes and call activities. In this lecture, we will focus on sub-processes. There are three different types of sub-processes: embedded sub-processes, event sub-processes, and transactions. You can easily distinguish them by the style of their boundaries. An embedded sub-process is drawn with a single thin line and features a plus sign in a small square. Let's have a look at an example workflow. When eating at a restaurant, you first have to read the menu and select a meal. You will then place an order and wait for your meal to be served. After a hopefully short period of waiting, it's time to eat and pay. Let's put a container around these tasks and consider this a process. Let's give it a name and call it Eat at a Restaurant. Note that there are no events in this example. Well, at this point we want to keep it as simple as possible. Let's transform this into an embedded sub-process. A sub-process is an activity whose internal details have been modeled using activities, gateways, events, and sequence flows, which is exactly what we just did. Right now, our sub-process is collapsed, which means the internal details are hidden. Think of a plus sign as a button to expand what's hiding behind the container. Let's expand our embedded sub-process. Now, the internal details are visible. Embedded sub-processes can be very handy when trying to model complex and large workflows. Sometimes it's better to hide information in order to focus on the essential message of the business process model. It makes it a lot easier to read and understand a given workflow. Note the difference between an expanded versus a collapsed workflow. Both have the same meaning, but the BPMN diagram changes dramatically. Next, let's have a look at event subprocesses. The boundary of event subprocesses are drawn with a thin dotted line. Event subprocesses are nested within other subprocesses. An event subprocess is always triggered by an event. Let's see how that works. In this example, we have a very generic subprocess. At some point during the execution of the process, an event took place which triggered the embedded event subprocess. Note that the event subprocess is expanded. That means we can see the internal details. The event could be an incoming message. Now, the parent process can either be interrupted or continue its work. We call this not interrupted. In this example, the parent process is interrupted and therefore the token disappears and moves down to the subprocess, to the event subprocess. We will talk more about events in a later lecture. The third type of activities are transactions. A transaction is a specialized type of subprocess that will have a special behavior controlled by a transaction protocol. The boundary of a transaction is a thin double line. There are three basic outcomes of transactions. In case of a successful completion, a normal sequence flow will leave the transaction subprocess. Failed completion. This means the transaction was cancelled. The third possible outcome is a hazard. That means something went terribly wrong and neither completion nor cancellation is possible. Let's have a look at an example as well. Let's assume a customer is trying to book a hotel online. In case of a successful booking, the customer will be sent an invoice and everything is fine and will work according to plan. However, if for some reason the booking fails, a rollback is necessary, which might include let's say, an unavailability notice. In case of unexpected problems, maybe the database crashed or something else unexpected happened, then the customer could be contacted via email in order to provide further guidance on how to solve this issue. Let's repeat what we just learned in this lecture. There are three different types of subprocesses: embedded subprocesses, event subprocesses, and transactions. You can easily distinguish them by the style of the boundaries. They each have their own functionality and can be very useful when modeling complex business scenarios. As always, the key learnings to conclude this lesson.